Hello and welcome to each of you. Today, we at Alexander and Haberman are hosting Mike Becker to present Annuities as an Income Planning Tool, the third of our spring workshop series, which has also included a Cinderella story on reverse mortgages, aging loved ones, what are your options, and estate planning, which is coming up in May. As we get started, I want to say it is great to be with so many of you again. A special thanks to all of our staff who make this possible, including Christian and Aaron, who are behind the scenes today running the equipment, and Brittany, Christian, Zena, Jackie, and Nicole. None of this would be possible without all of them. I want to extend a special welcome to any of you who may be seeing us for the first time, and to give a big thank you to those who invited each of you who are here. As we get started, I want to say where this came from. After working with clients to take care of their health insurance, Medicare, and group insurance needs, we find that more and more often our clients are asking about things that are impacting their decisions. Things like Social Security, when to retire, if they can retire, how to pay for things like long-term care or leave a legacy. While I'm a recovering financial advisor, I no longer practice in many of these areas. And so I've been looking for ways to assist. Because we have partnered with many financial advisors for a long time, we look to those advisors to help us present information on these topics. So, to get us started with today's presentation, let me please introduce today's speaker, Mike Becker. Mike Becker has been in the financial services industry for over 25 years. He started in the financial services industry right out of college. After 6 years running his own financial planning business, he transitioned into sales management. The last 19 years, Mike was in frontline management in Bloomington, Minnesota. Mike has qualified for numerous company and industry awards and has often been recognized as the top branch within his company. In 2013, Mike was recognized for the Gamma International Brian Early Frontline Excellence Award. Mike is an active member in Gamma International, having joined in 2005. He has been a volunteer on Gamma's Recognition Committee and Gamma's Leaders of Today and Tomorrow Committee. In 2013, Mike was nominated to Gamma International's Board of Directors. In 2021, Mike decided to start a family financial planning business called Legacy Financial Partners, LLC. Legacy Financial Partners works with Securities America, Futurity First Insurance Group, and Senior Market Sales, providing his clients with financial solutions. Mike specializes in building and implementing financial plans for busy families living in the Midwest and helping retirees with their retirement income plans. When Mike is not working, Mike enjoys golf, Wisconsin Badger football, and chasing his 3 kids, all under the age of 10, all around the house, the golf course, and the ball fields. Mike has been married to his beautiful wife, Anna, for 13 years. Let's all please welcome Mike Becker.
Thank you, Joshua, for that introduction, warm introduction. I'm excited to be with you, the Alexander and Haberman clients, friends, and in this beautiful new studio. So this is fantastic. I'm excited to be here today. Over the last 27 years, I've had a chance to really feel and hear this anxiety people have around retirement. Whether it's things like market risk or inflation or all the challenges, there's a lot of anxiety around this topic of how do people retire. And what we hope to do today is talk a little bit more about understanding annuities as an income planning tool. So we hope that you take away some very valuable tips from today's conversation. And as Joshua talked about, this is the third of 4 workshops. We have a wonderful workshop coming up in May on estate planning that we hope you put in your calendar, and we'll talk about a little bit later as well. Before we get into things, we always have the disclaimers. And of course, I'm not affiliated with the IRS, Social Security, or any governmental agency. I simply am a financial advisor here that's focused on providing great value in education and information. My broker-dealer, Securities America. And there's a whole bunch of additional disclosure. And I know that if you've attended our workshops in the past, you know we work really hard to make these very education-based. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to motivate you to run out and buy an annuity. What we do want to do is we want to motivate you to go out and to talk to somebody about whether an annuity is appropriate for your retirement situation. So let's go ahead and get started. And what I want to do is I want to share a little story. And I'd like you to close your eyes if you could humor me. And I want you to sit in the story that I'm going to tell, because you just retired a month ago and you are on your first trip, your first vacation as a retiree, you and your spouse and one of your favorite couples. And one of the places you've always wanted to go is to the desert. So you're in a car, driving down the road, really enjoying the desert. It's 118 degrees outside. It's nice and 70 degrees inside. You're looking at cactuses and snakes and scorpions, and you're just having a blast on this trip. And as you're driving, all of a sudden your wife looks over at you and says, "Hey, Bob, did you realize that our gas tank is on E?" Oh boy. Your buddy in the back says, "Oh yeah, I saw a sign probably 30 miles back that said the next gas station's 200 miles. Whoa boy, now there's stress. Your wife turns off the air conditioning, turns off the story. Your buddy in the back says, "No more cruise control." You're arguing, you're bickering. And you know you're gonna run out of gas, you just don't know when. You can open your eyes. Retirement income planning is a little bit like driving through the desert. What do I mean by that is, when you're in retirement, people think it's about the day you run out of money. It's not about the day you run out of money. It's about all those months and years leading up to when you know you're gonna run out of money. You're arguing, you're bickering. You're looking at your bank accounts going down, down, down. You know you're gonna run out of money, you just don't know when. Guaranteed lifetime income, like an annuity, is kind of like having an extra gas tank in your car as you're driving across the desert. And that's what I want you to think about today. We're going to talk about a lot of benefits of annuities, and we're really going to focus on this concept of guaranteed lifetime income as a main benefit to a retirement strategy. Now, we're talking about a specific product, and you've heard me speak before. Products are simply products. They're tools to solve problems. So we're really going to focus on some of those problems. So our agenda today is to briefly talk about today's retirement landscape. We will spend a fair amount of time talking about those risks, talking about those potential problems, and then we're going to spend a few minutes at the end talking about specific annuity products. And I always like to provide additional resources for you that want to gather more and learn more about this particular topic. One of those two resources is a book called Paychecks and Playchecks by Mr. Tom Hegna. If you ever have a chance to see Tom speak live or online, he's fantastic, he's funny, he's energetic, he's wonderful. This is a great book to read on the topic of retirement income planning and annuities. The second resource is a documentary by Doug Orchard. Came out recently within the last few months called The Baby Boomer Dilemma. And it's a story of exactly what we're talking about today, is making decisions around retirement. And really you can feel the emotions in that conversation. But what I really love is what's weaved into that is Mr. Orchard interviews a number of PhD economists and Nobel laureates that are in that retirement income space, and they are true experts. And we're going to actually incorporate a few vignettes from those conversations today. And I've never incorporated video in my presentation, so I'm crossing my fingers and hope it's going to work. The first one we're going to start with is Mr. Tom Hegna. We just spoke about his book. And Dr. Moshe Milewski. They're going to set the stage for really what are we talking about today in annuities and retirement income.
I don't think you can find an economist or somebody who's really studied retirement, the PhDs who say, "Oh no, don't get an annuity." They all own annuities. I own 11 of them. And so I think there are people who have agendas that are against annuities. You know, if you buy an annuity, they're not going to get their assets under management fee. And so there are some advisors, even some who call themselves fiduciaries, who are not acting in the best interest of their clients because they're not using annuities. And so I would just say be very careful when you listen to somebody who is anti-annuity. They don't understand retirement. I can tell you that. They cannot understand retirement and be anti-annuity. It's impossible.
I actually find it quite interesting. Economists do not agree on anything. I mean, it's actually unbelievable. You go to economic conferences and you'll go into a session and everybody's tearing each other apart. You know, inflation, is it good? Should we have a little bit more or should we keep it low? Disagreement. Minimum wage, is increasing minimum wage a good idea or a bad idea? Economists are disagreeing. Economists on the left and economists on the right. There seems to be only one area in economics where there's almost consensus. It's almost shocking to see it. The value of annuitization at retirement. Almost all economists, no matter what model or frame of mind they're coming to the retirement dilemma with, they'll say, it's a good idea to take a part of your nest egg at retirement and buy a guaranteed source of income, otherwise known as an annuity. And when I initially came into this field and I saw almost a consensus around this, whereas they were disagreeing about almost everything else, I said, there's got to be something there. In fact, I bought one of them myself because I like the idea that if I reach an advanced age, there's that income that's guaranteed that'll supplement my pension and my Social Security benefits. But it's very, very rare to find economists that will come and say, no, we think it's a bad idea to have people buy annuities at retirement. Now, there might be disagreement about how much people should annuitize or how much they should place in annuities. Should it be 60%? Should it be 40%? Or maybe even 20%? What does it depend on? Should we force people to annuitize to make it cheaper for everyone as a public good? Or should we allow people to voluntarily buy annuities? There's disagreement around the details of that. But the general notion of pooling people together, sharing longevity risk amongst the group, is widely accepted as the most efficient way to decumulate wealth in retirement.
The most efficient way to deaccumulate wealth in retirement. What I want you to write down, if you have a pen and paper, I want you to write this question down. This is your takeaway from that. What is it that they know that I don't know? And we're coming into this conversation about annuities. Some of us have preconceived notions, like them, don't know anything about them, and that's okay. Let's forget about that. But let's try to focus on what is it that they know that I don't know. And you're going to hear our PhD economists today talk about that. And we're going to spend the next 40 minutes trying to answer the question, what is it that they know that I don't know? And we always start our conversations around the 7 most common retirement risks. And annuities can actually participate and help with all of the risks. We're going to focus on about 3 or 4 of those risks today. What is the retirement landscape today? And we all know things have changed. What was it years ago? We had Social Security, we had pensions, and then we supplemented with our personal savings. What is it like now? Well, Social Security is not that much in many cases. There's fewer and fewer pensions. They're certainly smaller. And what does that mean? We as consumers have to fill in the gap more with personal savings. We have to, as consumers, be our own financial advisors. And that's adding a challenge to the planning we do. And there's a lot of great articles out in the marketplace, and there's good and there's not so good, that talk about annuities. And this wonderful article was written by the Boston College Center for Retirement Research. And essentially what it says is, what makes people happy is guaranteed lifetime income. It makes a case that those people with guaranteed life income, pensions, annuities, are happier than those that don't. This other article is written by Mr. Ken Nuss. It showed up in Kiplinger's years ago, and it actually says retirees with a guaranteed income are happier and can live longer. Now, I'm not necessarily suggesting you buy an annuity, you're going to live longer, but there's some studies out there that say that. Now, that said, not everybody wants to live a long time, right? So I want to make sure this is a balanced presentation. This is 10 easy ways to lower your lifespan. You don't have to worry about a lot of these retirement issues if we live a short life. On a serious note, we all know that we're using a lot of these different kinds of investments as we save. These are not uncommon for people. And what we're doing is we're building what was considered a nest egg is now more a basket of eggs. And the challenge we have as consumers is which ones do we crack to really fill that income gap? And that income gap is the gap that we see right here. So that blue line is what we need in income. The yellow and blue line represent Social Security and pension. And there's this gap. And how do we fill that gap? Now, one of the things that we like to do is we like to have a couple polls during our Zoom presentations to create engagement. But this one shows what are your peers thinking. And so we're going to ask everybody to participate here as much as you can in this poll. And the poll says, what ways are you planning to fill your income gap? We're probably going to use a whole bunch of these, but what's your primary source for filling that income gap? And we're going to put that poll up. I believe we have that poll up. continue working, using our savings, using our IRAs, which might be called required minimum distributions, liquidate assets, or potentially use an annuity. So if you can all participate and share, what is your primary way of filling in that income gap? We're going to give everybody a few seconds, and hopefully I'll have the results for you. All right, we do have our results. So it looks like half are planning on using IRAs. And you can see it's a nice distribution of all the different assets that are out there. And hopefully that last one, that annuity, might pick up a little bit after today's conversation. Thank you for participating in the poll. So we start talking about filling in that income gap. We always want to start with guaranteed income. And there's 3 sources of guaranteed income. Number 1 is Social Security. We know the average Social Security check's about $1,300. You add in a spousal benefit of about $700. That's not paying that many bills these days. We all know pensions are going away, or again, pensions that are out there are relatively small. So it's really creating a huge opportunity for the annuity space. Insurance companies have an opportunity and have had an opportunity for years to really create, and there's been a tremendous amount of innovation around annuities over the years, which is creating a lot of wonderful opportunities to help a consumer with some of the problems that we're talking about. So really where that annuity fits is it helps to shrink that income gap. So now you probably see it's the same income gap. We have the yellow line, which represents a guaranteed lifetime income annuity, and that income gap just shrunk. So we do this with our clients. We run this analysis to help people understand what is their income, what is their gap, and the best way to fill the income gap. And where do you start that conversation? So people are saying, where do I start? I love this little cartoon. It says, why bother to budget? So we can worry before we spend money as well as afterwards. And this, people cringe when they hear the budget. It's restrictive. If you've heard me speak in the past, we call it a spending plan because that's what it is. It's a plan for how you're going to spend your money. And our spending plan looks a little bit like this. On the left side has survival expenses, right side desired expenses. And this is really important as you start to think about your retirement income plan, is figure out what those basic or survival expenses are going to be. And that's personal. Everybody has a choice. Golf club membership, maybe survival, maybe it's desired. Everybody has a choice for where that fits. Then the desired are the nice to haves. And if you can start thinking about those, you can start to determine our opinion is the survival expenses need to be matched with guaranteed lifetime income. Social Security, pension, or annuity. That's our opinion. Now, when you get to the desired side, that's a little more open to interpretation. Some people want a little more risk. Let the market determine what I can do from a desired. Some like it all guaranteed with guaranteed lifetime income, or some like a little bit of both. But we feel very strongly survival expenses need to be matched with guaranteed lifetime income. And this article by Dr. Mike Becker from the Alliance for Lifetime Income Research, I think really nailed it as far as what is it like to retire today. It says we're facing the first generations of American workers approaching retirement with no clear idea of how much money they can count on receiving or what they can safely spend from their savings, such as IRAs, 401ks, without running out of money. And you think about how screwed up it is. We have this giant amount of money in our IRAs, but we have no idea what that means in income. Prior generations knew how much they'd have in pensions, knew how much they have in Social Security. It's creating a huge problem for us as consumers. And so some of those risks that we really want to talk about today, remember, an annuity is simply a tool. It's a solution to a potential problem. These are the risks we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about longevity risk, inflation risk, and then market and sequence of return risk we're going to bring together in one. So longevity risk is always a challenging risk because we call it the great multiplier risk. If you remember the 7 most common risks that we talked about, number 7 is longevity risk, because the longer we're on the planet, more chance of bad things happening to us. If we all tip over dead the first year in our retirement, don't have to worry about inflation, do we? So this is a real solution or real problem that we need to find a solution for. And when you start talking about problems, You don't talk about probability, you talk about what is the problem we're leaving behind. If you plan on passing away at 82 and you live to 92, that's 10 real tough years. So it's interesting with life expectancy. As you can see, life expectancy is in those early 80s, and we're living longer, right? With science and technology, we're all living longer. And we know with that life expectancy, half people die before that number and half people die after. Now we're going to do a poll here, and this poll talks about a female who is 65 today. So we're forgetting about infant mortality and car wrecks. We're talking about somebody, a female who makes it to 65. If you could participate in the poll, we would love it. That female has a 1 in 4 chance of living to what age? Go ahead and put in your thoughts. A 1 in 4 chance of living to what age? And we'll see if we can get some results here. $91, all right. Thank you for participating in the poll. So it's close. It's certainly a lot more than 84. The number's actually 96. So you can see on the left is 50%, 25% chance. A male living at 87 or 93, a female 89 or 96. But I think it's that right side, a married couple that makes it to 65. There's a 1 in 2 chance that somebody's going to make it to 93. That means it's a 30-year retirement that many of us have to plan for. So again, it's really hard to understand and predict longevity. Now there's a lot of tools out there that you can use. Blueprintincome.com was one that I recently used. If anybody cares what Mike Becker's life expectancy is, it's right here. It's age 95. My wife's 6 years younger. So guess what? I have to plan for a 40-year retirement. You can bet the Beckers are planning on using annuities for guaranteed lifetime income for their retirement strategy. Let's talk about inflation risk. So for 26 of my 27 years, I never had to talk about inflation. Now we saw things going up in price a little bit, but very small amounts. Now the last 6 months, we know what inflation is. We've seen a spat of inflation. What does that do? It reduces our purchasing power. So our asset values go down, like on the screen. But the other thing that happens is what can we buy in the future? If inflation goes back to historical, which is a touch over 3%, in roughly 25 years, things will halve. Or, better said, you're going to need twice as much money to buy the same stuff you're buying today. So we need to make sure that our assets continue to grow to be able to deal with inflation risk. Now we're going to have another poll. Last poll, I believe, today. And for somebody that was born 65 years ago, I believe that was 1957, how much did it cost for eggs? We just came off the Easter season. I thought we could celebrate by talking about eggs. How much did a dozen eggs cost 65 years ago? If you go ahead and participate, we appreciate it. Hopefully you're having some fun with our polls. Okay, let's see if we can see some results. The answer is everybody nails it. It is 57 cents. So 4 times, right? That's inflation risk. The next risk is market volatility. Now we saw at the beginning of this year with the war some volatility in the markets, right? Markets have gone down a little bit, bounced around. We saw in 2020 with COVID, what happened in March and April, the market went down substantially, right over 20%. What do we see in 2008 with the banking crisis, the mortgage meltdown, right? We saw the market go down dramatically. Scary, scary time. How about 99 and 2000, the beginning of the century, right? .com bubble. What happened? Market went down nearly 40%. Statistically, we know every 4 years the market's going to go down 30%. Statistically, every 4 years, the market will go down 30%. If you retire into a flat or declining market, that could be a death spiral for your retirement plan. There's 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is really behavioral. Because when the market goes down, what happens? We all think, okay, Well, maybe we got to get out of the market. Now, you can also write this down. I learned this 30 years ago in my first finance class. It is buy low, sell high. So what are we doing? Oops, we're selling low. That's one mistake. And what's the second mistake? We wait for the market to come back. We got to wait till it feels better. So now we're buying high. So we're selling low, buying high. That's one problem we run into with this market risk. The other risk that's tied into that is called the sequence of return risk. We've talked about this in the past, and we want to take this just a little bit deeper today. And we're going to share an example here of Susan and Joe. And the fact pattern with Susan and Joe, exactly the same. Exact same amount, $500,000, the exact same withdrawal, the exact same inflation rate, exact same average annual return. What are their account balances 20 years from now? Intellectually, wouldn't it be prudent to think that they're going to be exactly the same? The answer is no. Substantially different. There's Joe with that number at the very bottom, $362,000, his death spiral of his retirement plan. Where Susan's got that $1.7 million. That's 3, 4, 5 times the amount of money Joe has. How can that potentially be? Fact pattern's the same. It's all because the sequence or timing of returns. Let's look in that blue column. In Susan's first year at age 66, her return, the market return was 31%. Go over to the orange category, Joe's was minus 37%. You can see what's happening. So all we're doing is we're flipping the returns opposite. So the timing or the sequence of those returns is so important and can often turn that retirement nest egg into the death spiral. Sequence of return risk. Now, let's talk about potential solutions to this problem. Obviously, this conversation today is about annuities. And I want to bring in our friend, Dr. Olivia Mitchell, who's a PhD economist from Wharton. And she's going to tell us what is an annuity.
The word annuity is either a dirty word or a word that they don't understand, or both. In its simplest terms, an annuity is an insurance contract where you, the policyholder, give a certain sum of money to an insurance company, and the insurance company promises to pay you until you die. That's the simplest, plain vanilla life annuity. It's lifetime income for as long as you shall live. There are many ways to make it complex, right? It could be that you have a joint and survivor annuity, so you help cover your spouse if you should predecease him or her. You could have a life insurance component added in. You could have an inflation index, etc. But the real essence of it is that you and everybody else in that insurance risk pool are pooling your money together, and whoever outlives life expectancy makes money on net, and whoever dies before his or her life expectancy ends up transferring assets to the people who live a long time. So it's based on the law of large numbers. We don't know exactly when we're going to live to or die by, but on average, we can figure that if we happen to keep on living, we will be supported by that insurance pool.
And that's really what an annuity is. I think Dr. Mitchell really concisely explained what an annuity is, and it's really the lifetime income annuity that she speaks of. Now, people buy annuities for lots of different reasons. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of innovation in the annuity space by insurance carriers to do lots of different things for the consumer. We're spending a ton of time today talking about that lifetime income. Other reasons why people buy annuities is to protect their savings. Protect from what? Market risk. There's guaranteed rates. So it looks and smells like a CD at a bank, maybe with a touch higher interest. Potential growth, tax deferred outside of IRAs and Roth IRA money. Access to some of that money through liquidity. Nursing home or long-term care type benefits. Those of you that sat through our long-term care presentation a couple months ago learned that this hybrid space annuities are a great solution to people who can't qualify for traditional long-term care insurance. And then legacy. some of these tools or some of these products are really designed to be able to transfer wealth very efficiently. So annuities can do a lot of different things based on what's important to you. Now we're going to talk about what I think is one of the most important things. So if you take nothing away from today's conversation other than this piece right here, Dr. David Babel from the Wharton School talks a little bit about this concept that we call mortality credits. This is a term that's used in our industry, mortality credits. And I want you to really listen to what Dr. Babel, one of our PhD economists, is talking about.
Mortality credits.
If you're a good manager of your money, you shouldn't get one annuity. You should get several. And you get enough to live off of to get your basic income, and that'll get you through maybe 70 to 75 or 65 to 72 or something like that. But then when you start running short of money, you have these other annuities that are held in, that are growing tax deferred, and they are also increasing in the mortality credits that they're ready to give you if you annuitize. And it becomes quite a substantial increment to your income. And so in my particular case, I bought a number of annuities, and actually I bought 14. And when I retired, I annuitized 7 of them. So that would allow me to live at a comfortable rate because I had 7 annuities paying monthly income plus a Social Security. And then when I hit a point that it's not making it, the budgets are costing us more to live than these annuities and Social Security are paying out, my wife just needs to tell me, dear, we're not making it this month and we need to do something. And all I do is take one of those annuities and annuitize it. So its monthly income is in addition to the monthly income I'm already getting from this other 7 annuities. Now I've got 8 annuities. And it may be fairly significant. Maybe it goes up 10% or 15%. But the other ones that I don't annuitize are growing with deferred interest, and the mortality credits keep getting bigger and bigger because I'm getting older and older. And so they're increasingly valuable. And when my wife says, dear, we need some more money, it's not making it, I say, have I got a deal for you? And I turn on another one of the annuities, and whoa, it increases our income by 25, 30% for the rest of our lives. And we still have the annuities that we haven't activated. And if I die, or if my wife, if we both die, those annuities are inheritable by our kids. And I'm sure that will be very much appreciated.
So Dr. Babel talked about buying 14 annuities. What did I say earlier? What is it he knows that I don't know? And he talked about really these mortality credits becoming more and more valuable. So I want to show you what's happening. Now don't get too excited or don't get too worked up on the specific numbers on this chart. What I want you to see is what's happening on this chart. What's happening on the chart is the payout rate for an annuity. So somebody 65, in this example, the payout rate's 5.87. What happens at age 70? That payout rate is what? 6.92. If my math was correct, I think it's about 17% increase. 8.59 at age 75. You see what's happening. That is where you see mortality credits. The only product on the planet that has mortality credits are annuities. If you and I, let's say you're older than I, we go into the bank. Let's think about different investments. And we both open a savings account. Do we both get the same rate of return, or do you get more because you're older? We get the same, right? How about that stock that we both own? Do you get paid more because you're older than I am? No, mutual fund, except there's nothing. What's awesome about mortality credits, I call it's the great reverse discrimination. As you get older, you get paid more. And that's a beautiful thing. And that is the secret sauce of annuitization. Here's another example to just illustrate. Again, don't worry so much about the numbers. Understand what's happening. So we just have this 100,000 that we're investing in. And you can see the second category from the left just simply shows a 4% withdrawal rate. Pretty straightforward. Annuitization at age 65 is $5,870 or $1,870 more. Annuitization, mortality credits provide more income. Age 70, that goes up to $6,900 in annuitization. $8,500 at 75 and $10,000 at age 80. That is mortality. Those are mortality credits baked in. And that, again, is the secret sauce of annuitization. So let's talk a little bit about the annuities, the tools, the products that are designed to provide the wonderful benefits, to solve the problems that we spoke about earlier, to help solve some of those problems we spoke about earlier. Very simply, there's two kinds of annuities. There's immediate and then there's deferred. Immediate and deferred. Now you see 4 up here, but we're going to take those a little bit more narrowly. So in the annuity continuum, there's a different risk spectrum. We've got very conservative annuities in the income and the fixed, and then we have more aggressive or higher volatility, higher potential rates of return with the fixed indexed and the variable. So let's start with the income annuity first and foremost. This is what Dr. Mitchell talked about earlier. The essence, the core, what's been around hundreds, if not thousands of years on our planet is this concept of giving a pension-like income for a set period of time or for one's life. The insurance company they manage mortality risk, they manage market risk, they manage interest rate risk. They take it on their shoulders. All you got to worry about is spending your money. That is the essence of what an income annuity is. So income annuities typically pay out between day 1 or day 30 usually and about 13 months. That would constitute what's called an immediate annuity. If it's not an immediate annuity, it typically falls into the deferred annuity space. And there's 3 types of deferred annuities. And that just simply means I'm going to get a chunk of money later or I'm going to turn on a future income stream. And those 3 really are fairly straightforward. On the left side, we have the fixed, which provides guarantee returns, probably lower returns, but safety and stability. On the other end of the spectrum is the variable annuity. That provides potentially more return. You get to capture more of the upside, but you also capture the downside as well. But you've got more potential. They're invested in sub-accounts that mirror or look like mutual funds. And then fixed indexed annuities fit right in the middle. Now, we're talking about annuities here. The popularity of annuities is something most people don't understand. There was $254 billion invested in annuities last year. New money going into annuities, $254 billion. Of these 3, which one had the most growth? It's actually the fixed index. It doesn't mean any of them are better or worse, but the fixed index is certainly picking up steam in popularity, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the fixed annuity space. So the first one is a fixed deferred MYGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity. It's like a CD at a bank. If you've invested in CDs, you kind of understand, you put a chunk of money in, you've got a locked-in rate for a period of time. There's a safety of the principal, that rate of return is fixed for, again, a period of time. It's predictable. If you buy an annuity outside an IRA or a Roth, it does provide tax-deferred growth. Inside an IRA or Roth, it already has tax deferral, so that's not a benefit of an annuity inside one of those products. Provides access or liquidity, and then there's flexible investment options. I want to just take one moment and talk about surrender. So when you see access to money or liquidity, so when you give the money to the insurance company, they put it in their general fund. Again, they're managing mortality risk, interest rate risk, market risk. So they're investing that money for an extended period of time. So in order to make sure that money stays and they can stay fully invested, they put on a surrender schedule. Life insurance policies, annuities typically have something. It simply says that if you give the insurance company a bunch of money and you ask for it all right back within a short period of time, they're going to keep a little bit of that money as a cost for not letting your money sit and bake. Those are called surrender charges. Now, that sometimes are so number one is if you have a chunk of money and you might need a large sum of that in the next year, 2, 3, an annuity might not be a great solution for that pocket of money. It's more for those that can leave it sit and bake. But what I wanted to point out is there is access to these annuities for a number of different reasons. Number one, they typically all have access to a certain portion of the balance each and every year, usually about 10% that you can pull out, no penalties. Number two is there's usually catastrophic clauses, things like nursing home stays or expenses with a loss of a house or car, those type of things. There's those type of catastrophic clauses that allow you to get your money back and not pay those surrender charges. So again, a lot of innovation happening in the annuity space, but I wanted to bring that up because that's really important if you're looking to park money, whether annuities are appropriate or not. Tax deferral, as I stated earlier, if it's outside an IRA, if it's in an IRA or Roth, automatically gets that. The next bucket or type of deferred annuity is a fixed index or an FIA, fixed indexed annuity. This, as I said earlier, picked up the biggest increase in demand last year in the annuity space. And what happens here is you get growth based on an index-linked interest. I'll explain that a little bit more, but what's really attractive to people is the no downside losses to this particular product. I learned this many years ago in wealth management. It's not how much money you make in good markets, it's how little you lose in down markets. And so that's where these FIAs, fixed index annuities, become very popular and very powerful. Tax deferral, and again, can provide guaranteed lifetime income in the future. So what index is the fixed index annuity linked to? Well, there are lots of different kinds of index. For the most popular is going to be the S&P 500, but again, there's a lot of innovation happening around the index. As I said earlier, the fixed index annuity, you get a portion of the return or the index. So this visual hopefully helps us explain that. So the blue line shows what the index did that particular year. The green box to the right shows how much was credited to the owner's account. That's what's important, but no downside risk. As you see on the bottom, it says the insurance guarantees against the loss. That red is nothing that a consumer sees, because remember, as I said earlier, the market goes down, that's a problem. Market goes down 50%. What kind of rate of return do you have to get back to zero? 100, right? You don't incur that in the fixed index space. So I want to give a visual here, and this visual hopefully helps illustrate what's happening in the fixed index and the locked-in gains. So the first yellow circle on the left just shows that the market went up and it captured a nice credit. The second year, the little yellow circle, market went up, it captured those gains as well. The third year, the red dotted line shows the market went down substantially. So the credit you can see was zero. That fixed index annuity did not go down. The next year, market went up. Those gains were locked in at year 3. So that gain was added on top of where it ended in year 3. That is how gains are locked in a fixed indexed annuity. Now there's a couple different words or things that are important inside fixed index annuity. None of them are right or wrong, good or bad. There's certain things that we like a little bit better, but this is just how fixed index annuities are built. So these are terms that are important in understanding. The first one is floor. So floor, again, is for the most part, can't go below 0. The second one is called a cap. So what that means is you're going to get a cap on what your credit is in your indexed annuity. So the particular fixed index annuity, let's say it has a cap of 6. Market does or index does 10%, your credit's 6. Your product does, or the index does 3%, you get a credit of 3. So you're going to get the full market return up to a cap. The next one is a participation rate. You're going to get a certain portion of those market or index returns. Let's use 70% as an example. So if the index or the market did 10%, then your credit in your annuity is 7%. Market does 20, index does 20, your credit is 14. That's how participation rate works. The last one is spread, and that's just a certain chunk that's kept by the insurance company. And let's just use 4% as an example. So let's say market or index does 10, they take out 4, you net 6 is your credit. Market does 20, spread is 4, you net 16 for a credit. So all of these are ways that insurance carriers are able to provide you a portion of the upside and none of the downside. All of the participation, the rates, the caps, that money is used to buy options. So at the end of the day, the insurance companies can keep your money from going negative. So are fixed annuities or are annuities right for you? And there's several questions that you need to answer. These are some good questions to ask, and one might be, do you want more balance? Are you in traditional equities or full stocks and bonds aren't super attractive these days? Do you want a little more balance or a little more diversity? Number two, do you want more safe money options? It's hard to watch those markets go down, especially the more zeros you have in your accounts. That's painful. Do you want some safe money options? You've done a great job of saving. You don't need to accumulate more. Are you looking for more guarantees over and above your Social Security and or pension? Do you want growth potential without market loss or participating in market losses? And another really important question to ask or answer is how and when will I need that money? And benefits and features with all annuities do change from company to company and product to product, state to state. Your cousin buys the same product in Illinois. It might be a little different from the one that we might have here in Minnesota. Annuities are not backed by the FDIC. They're not tied in with banks, but they are backed by the insurance. They're backed by their own strength and financial ability, but the regulators of regulators of insurance companies are state regulators. They watch over the insurance carriers, and there are risk pools to help protect those assets in every state is a little bit different. Okay, we've talked about a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of benefits of annuities, and I want to bring it back to the concept that we talked about earlier, is guaranteed lifetime income and mortality credits. And I want Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Babel to really bring us home in reminding us, what is that benefit of an income annuity?
An annuity is a different asset. It's not like stocks and bonds. You can't replicate it.
It costs about 40 to, when interest rates are really low, 40 to 50% less to fund lifetime income with annuities than it does with stocks and bonds.
So my research, what we know is that if you do buy an annuity, say at age 65, just for example, you don't have to convert your entire nest egg into annuity, but say an age 65-year-old woman who buys an annuity with part of her money could consume as much as 40% more in retirement throughout the rest of her life. So that, I think, is really illustrative of the value of the annuity.
Definitely agree.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We spent some time talking about the current landscape of retirement. We've talked about some of the risks. We talked about how annuities work and some of the benefits of those annuities. As I started our conversation today, I said I didn't want to motivate you to run out to buy an annuity. I wanted to motivate you to run out to learn, to talk to somebody about whether an annuity is right for you. It's not the only tool out there. It's a powerful tool in the retirement income space. So let's map it out. So if there's any questions, if there's anything that I can answer, these are complex products. And as you all have learned in retirement and retirement income planning, having an expert help coach you through this is beneficial. So if we can ever be a resource, we can help you out, please don't hesitate to reach out. Before we finish, I wanted to remind everybody that we've got a great fourth session coming up here on estate planning. Mr. Joe Mullen is a fantastic presenter, and he's going to talk about not only estate planning, but very unique planning that can be done in Minnesota. But many of us don't think about estate planning, or we did a will many years ago. It's really smart when we start talking about retirement income planning and retirement planning to make sure we've got a good handle on our estate plan. So I'm going to highly encourage you to write down May 16th to participate in our either virtual or in-person session. Lastly, as we always like to provide some 101 kind of content. Some of the presentation, some of what I go through is very technical, very deep. So we have this wonderful little 101 version. It's called Annuities Explained, a 101 guide put together by annuity.org that we are happy to push this out to you to provide another resource to help understand a little more of what we spoke about today. So how can we help? Well, we're happy to do an annuity consultation. So if you have some questions about existing annuities or is an annuity appropriate for me, we're happy to help in that way. We're happy to do one of those income analysis that we saw earlier to help you understand what is it that you're trying to need and what is it that you need from your investments. We can provide the spending plan. That's always something that's highly asked for after our presentation, so we're happy to send that out to you as well. We can send you any of the recordings of the prior 3, this plus the prior 2 workshops, the aging and the reverse mortgage workshops as well. And as I just said, the 101 annuity guide, we're happy to send that as well. So feel free, if you want any of this information, we're happy to push it out to you, get it all to you. Feel free to use chat if you're comfortable doing that. You can chat what it is that you're looking for, a consult, spending plan, recording guide, whatever is important. Or if you don't know, just put your name in and we'll reach out and find out how we can potentially help. So just put your name in and what you'd like us to send you, and over the next couple days, we'll make sure we get that to you. Additionally, if you don't feel comfortable chatting, you can send an email to workshops@mnhealthagents.com, or you can send an email directly to me requesting any of those resources or any way that we can potentially help. So I'm just going to leave this up here for just a moment so you can all capture that, take a picture as you will, and then we're going to get ready for questions here in just a moment.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Mike, for sharing all of that. As promised, our question and answer session is coming up next. To respect the time of anyone who may need to leave early, we're going to share our ending comments and disclaimers now, and then begin the Q&A. So thank you again to everyone for attending today's presentation, the Spring 2022 Speaker Series, and today specifically the annuities as an income planning tool. If you missed one of our previous workshops, you can email workshops@mnhealthagents.com to receive a link to the recordings. We look forward to hosting our next workshop in our Spring Speaker Series on estate planning virtually on May 17th and in person on May 19th. Look for an email soon. Thanks to Mike Becker with Legacy Financial Partners and all of the support staff, including Caleb, Aaron, who are both running all of our technology, as well as all of the rest of our staff, Brittany, Christian, Zena, Jackie, and Nicole. As always, Alexander and Haberman does not practice or hold license in the specialties of its speakers, but welcomes them here to speak for the educational benefit of our clients, friends, and guests. Alexander and Haberman is a specialty firm focused on assisting with Medicare Advantage, supplemental, and Part D plans, as well as individual and family health insurance on and off the exchanges, as well as group benefits, including health, dental, vision, and disability. For those of you who are able to continue, we'll now begin with our question and answer session. As a reminder, please use the chat feature below and ask your questions to the host and panelists so we can try to answer those for you. Talk to you some more soon. Well, Mike, that was a real joy. Thank you very much. It's nice to actually be able to chat with you in this much more human way. Sometimes I feel
Fantastic.
like the other screens are a bit rigid.
This is a great, comfortable environment. And I got to tell you that you always start the presentation talking about my love of Badger football. So you've supported me with Badger red chairs. I love it. Thank you for that.
You know, I did not catch that. I will see what I can do about that. But thank you for appreciating them this one time. We'll have to use them. Might be the last time. Well, thanks again, everybody, for hanging around. We've got a number of questions. If there are more questions that roll in throughout, we're happy to add them. I would like to start, Mike, if that's okay, with what for me seems to be the question that I hear the most often, right? And that's, tell me what happens when I die early, because this is all about living long, but not everybody lives long.
Sure. And I think that's a really important question, Joshua. That's why we really spent a lot of time talking about longevity, right? So if I know I'm just not going to live a long life because I haven't been healthy or whatever, maybe an annuity isn't a great solution. But I think maybe the other part of that question is, in the income annuity, it pays me as long as I live, right? You can design, we talked about customization. You can design that annuity to pay for your whole life, your spouse's whole life, and if it's not all used up, the remainder can go off to a kid or charity. So there's a lot of design options available if one is concerned about dying too soon and not leaving a lot of that money.
Sounds like there's solutions, but they might fall into that it's complicated category. So I don't know if that
Usually.
means another presentation down the road or if you're going to be getting flooded with emails. But I'm glad to know that there are things that are available for people to dial the risk up or down in a way that makes them comfortable.
For sure.
One of the things that really struck me with your speakers was them talking about having more than one annuity. And of course, one of my questions then becomes, well, how do I decide which annuity? I mean, maybe I've decided on an immediate annuity, maybe I've decided on a deferred, but there's still so many choices. There's still so many insurance companies. How do I filter through all of that?
That's a really tough question to answer. It's a really good question. But I think that comes back to the strategy. You know, so many of us consumers have financial products. We have market investments, we have lots of different things, but we don't really have that strategy. So that strategy, that retirement income plan usually precedes what's the right kind of annuity. Because when we take it more of a bottom up of this annuity does this annuity does that, they all do great things. But what is really a fit for your situation? That's what's appropriate. So that plan that we talked about, having that, figuring out what that income gap is, helps us determine first and foremost how much of that gap we want to solve with guaranteed lifetime income. And then we can take a look in the annuity space and find out what provides the highest income in that situation. And then we can start talking about other things like that desired income, right? That extra portion. Do we want guaranteed lifetime income to solve that? If that's the case, when is that going to happen? We'll take a look at perhaps a second annuity or third or fourth annuity to solve that problem. But I think that the secret sauce that Dr. Babel was talking about was if you have multiple annuities, and this is, I think, different ways of thinking about it. I think a lot of people in the past might have thought about getting an annuity, and that's fine, but Dr. Babel really talked about that the longer you hold that annuity, what happens? It's becoming more valuable because you're getting more mortality credits. So he has 14 annuities because he's letting us suffer more mortality credits, right? So when he's 75 and he annuitizes, his payout rate is 10%, right? Versus maybe 6% on what he annuitized when he was 62 or 65. That, and again, when I talk about those mortality credits, that's really the secret sauce in why you would have multiple annuities in many cases. To answer the question?
I think so. Thank you for that. One thing that's striking me, especially in this environment where things are changing, where I think they're changing very fast, perhaps I shouldn't read so much of the Wall Street Journal, but I feel like the world is changing very, very rapidly right now. I mean, if I make a decision, or maybe if I made a decision 2 years ago or 5 years ago, what ability do I have to change those decisions or to transfer from one annuity to another if there's an innovation or a product feature that I'm interested in?
Sure. So when you have an annuity, an existing annuity, I talked about those surrender charges earlier, right? So that's going to be with the lifetime of that product. That product, typically annuities are going to be on average probably 6 to 8 years, right? So if there's something, I buy an annuity this year, I probably don't want to change it. I hopefully it's a great strategy. It does exactly what I want. And I think sometimes I run into that problem as a practitioner. There's always that innovation, right? So I'm like, this is really cool. This is so awesome. And sometimes it gets in the way of a really good plan that's already in place. And who's to say that this wonderful, cool future is any better than the foundation that we put in place that made sense 2 years ago or 3 years ago? But once those annuities are out of that surrender period, Joshua, you have the ability to do what's called a 1035 exchange. So if you have an old annuity sitting around, that's out of those surrender, you can do a 1035 and move it into a new annuity. No penalties, no taxes, you're just switching into a new strategy.
So I remember from our long relationship and our introduction, right, that you've been doing this for a long time. How often do you see that being attractive? Is there a lot of those sort of transfers that goes on?
Yeah, historically, yes. Now, that was probably before a lot of the innovation in the guaranteed income, this fixed indexed annuity spaces. I'll say relatively new. In some of those products that you buy today, there really isn't a great reason to be making a change at some point. The changes that we've done historically are in that multi-year guaranteed space where, again, it's like a CD, right? You bought it, it's paying 4%. Well, now the period is up and maybe rates are a little bit higher, so you move it from that annuity to another annuity. Or you have this annuity and now maybe my health isn't great and I'd like maybe a death benefit feature attached to it. So once it's out of that surrender period, you can certainly take a peek at what's really important to you, and then that product. There's always going to be an annuity out there to do something, whether it's more income, whether it's higher potential return, whether it's death benefit. There's always going to be some innovation where it potentially could make sense to move it at that time.
Question about the multiple annuity situation that came up in a couple of the examples. And I don't know if you know this, if they share this elsewhere in their comments, but are they likely acquiring all of those at once, or are they acquiring them gradually over time?
Gradually over time. And then Dr. Babel actually talks about it in one of his other vignettes that he uses high quality companies. I didn't really talk about that, but when you're in that annuity space, we are big proponents of using high quality A+ rated carriers or better. So Dr. Babel does talk a lot about he has a biasness towards that. He also has a biasness towards a certain amount of money with certain carriers because, as I talked about, there's no FDIC insurance, but there's like an insurance company for an insurance company. It's similar to FDIC, but for insurance companies. So like in the state of Minnesota, you're guaranteed up to $300,000 per account. So Dr. Babel would do is he would place so much money, ABC company, up to $300,000 with this carrier. He would provide some with a different carrier. So in the unlikely event anything ever happened to these companies, even though there's the risk pool that's behind it that can back up the amount of money versus putting a giant amount into one carrier, that company goes out of business. Yes, I'm still guaranteed, but only up to $300,000, and my annuity might be more. So that's another reason why spreading that out just helps spread out the risk a little bit.
So let's talk about ways to get money into an annuity, right? And one of the questions that we got was life insurance cash value. Some clients have built up a lot of this over a long life, and they may feel that their needs for life insurance are changing relative to their need to sustain their livelihood in what could be a very long retirement. What is available to them in that area of funding the annuity?
For sure. So we talked about that 1035 exception earlier. It allows you to go from annuity to annuity without any kind of tax or any implications. That same 1035 applies for life to annuities. So somebody who does have a significant, not even a significant, whatever the minimum annuity happens to be with a carrier, you can transfer whatever the surrender value is of the life insurance policy into an annuity, maintain its tax status, so no tax implications, and then that funds the annuity.
Fantastic. I have seen some illustrations of some of these life insurance policies, and particularly as people get older and those mortality charges get higher, that can put a lot of pressure on cash value. Do you sometimes see people in this situation where cash value is getting pressured,
For sure.
choosing to put it into something else where they've got a different set of guarantees and they're not at risk of potentially dying and seeing nothing or very little?
For sure. There is, not to go too deep into the universal life products that might not have been funded appropriately, or again, when interest rates went down, the illustrations were higher. Some of those, if you've got those policies, you want to do in-force illustrations, and when you see that cash value, it's just a matter of time, right? Those illustrations say in 2030 there's going to be nothing left. Sometimes that's a way that we save some of the cash. Maybe people need the life insurance for 8 more years, but people that really want to have that cash, that's a good time. If you see those cash values starting to go down, you can save some of that, still for your future, right, and get that 1035'd into an annuity.
What is the primary funding mechanism of an annuity if someone's primary retirement assets are their home and their 401k or their 403b or their IRA. And so you've really just got two buckets, and one is not very liquid.
So in that situation, remember the premise is that we need guaranteed lifetime income. So there's a lot of annuities inside IRAs and Roth IRAs, because even though it's been promoted that annuities have tax deferral, you don't buy an annuity for tax deferral purposes inside an IRA since it already has it. But there's a lot of people, because that is a substantial amount of money that they have, they need to pull it out through required minimum distributions anyway, right at 72, then why not turn that into a guaranteed lifetime income strategy, or portion of that into a guaranteed lifetime income strategy?
Is there a simple way to kind of answer the question, what impact does that have on my RMDs if I annuitize a portion of my retirement account?
So it might satisfy your RMDs. So if your RMDs happen to be $1,000 you need to take out, this annuity turns on an income stream, right? We're assuming it provides a guaranteed income stream. Then ultimately what that does is if it pays out $1,000, $2,000, that income that comes out of the annuity satisfies the required minimum distribution.
Fantastic, fantastic. You also spoke about some additional features. I don't know if they are called riders, like on the life insurance side or something else, right? But can you speak a little bit about the long-term care benefits that these annuities might have?
For sure. And because we had the workshop a month or two ago, a fair amount of people reached out to us that were uninsurable for traditional long-term care. And again, there's a lot of innovation in this hybrid space. So these annuities are designed a couple different ways, but one of the ways what it does is a lot of people that don't want to use don't want to buy long-term care insurance, they're defaulting to self-insuring, right? So what they can do is they can actually use an annuity product that they can still self-insure. They're going to use their money for maybe 2 years or 3 years, and then the insurance company is going to give them 3, 4, 5 more years on the backside. So you're going to potentially take what your capital might only take you for maybe 2 years. Now with the hybrid annuity, you're essentially getting a 6-year product. So that's one of the types of innovation in the long-term care space. Another one provides in the immediate income annuity space, Joshua, where we're paying $1,000 a month and I need long-term care. What happens then is that $1,000 gets doubled. So if I have an immediate annuity, that's where it's actually provided, is when somebody needs long-term care for usually up to 5 years.
That's fantastic. I know that that's a worry that more and more people are running into, and the cost is just becoming staggering for many, many people.
And thank you. If I could jump in one more point too, is with the annuities, the first solution I talked about has very few health questions. The second strategy has no health questions. So it is truly for some people that are sitting out there saying, I got some health issues, or I got a whole bunch of health issues, and long-term care is not a solution. One of these strategies is going to help. And it's not perfect, but at least you can get some leverage. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to make sure that point was emphasized.
You know, I really appreciate that, and I think a lot of our clientele will appreciate that, because they're accustomed coming to us with guaranteed issue and not having questions asked, because that's the way many Medicare plans work. That's the way healthcare has worked since the advent of the ACA for many people. And so it's nice to know, and I think very reassuring for many of the people out there, that products exist in that way, even for something as scary as a need for long-term care. Let's see here. We got a question, and I don't know what rules you might have that govern your answer to this question, but we've got a question of whether or not it's possible for us to name any names of companies in the annuity space. Is that something that you're comfortable doing, or?
Which are some preferred companies, or is there a little more clarity to that?
The way I might initially interpret that with the information that I have here is maybe some of the companies who issue the most, maybe who are these A+ rated companies that you mentioned earlier. I think those might be two good ways to answer that question.
Sure. So let me see, that's really hard to answer, because there's so many. Any large life insurance company is going to probably be very highly rated, right? When you think of the largest companies, the Guardians or these large companies, so they're going to have annuity products behind them. Now, maybe one specific answer, because I was just dealing with this case earlier, is the number one annuity in guaranteed lifetime income in the fixed indexed annuity space the last 3 years is Nationwide. So that's just one that's on the tip of my tongue. So there's different kinds of in that fixed annuity space. You've got guaranteed income, you've got inflation protected income, you've got a lot of different kinds of things. But one of the largest, or the last 3 years in guaranteed lifetime income, is Nationwide. Athene, AIG, on and on and on of big carriers. Securion's got good. They've got a lot of good companies, a lot of good annuity companies out there. Hopefully, I answered the question.
Super, and I would suggest that anyone who maybe wants additional follow-up, reach out directly to Mike, or if you reach out to workshops@mnhealthagents.com, we'll certainly get an answer to you for that question from sure. Mike. One of the questions that I've often wondered about, and it looks like from the questions here that many in our audience are wondering about as well, is what does lifetime guaranteed income actually mean in practice, right? And I think some of your speakers suggested that there were many different ways these payouts could be made. So maybe you could speak to that variety and both the risk and the potential protection that some of those variations offer.
Okay, so hopefully I can answer this. The most simple version Dr. Mitchell talked about was paying you an income as long as you're on the planet. Meaning if you're 120 years old, you're getting that paycheck. Social Security is a guaranteed lifetime income. It pays you as long as you're on the planet. So that's what we mean by guaranteed lifetime income. So some of those, the purest form pays you. More and more in that retirement space it's designed to be joint income. When there's a husband-wife, that's normally the way that we'll look at it, all things being equal. That simply means that if Joshua passes away, that income will continue with your wife as long as she's on the planet. So if she's 120, she's going to still get paychecks too. So that's what the guaranteed lifetime income is. Again, it comes back to that longevity risk, is you can't outlive that. There's no other assets that you can say, I can't outlive it, right? Because you don't know how long that stock is going to last, or the savings account last, or any of those are going to last. But when you've got a pension, when you have Social Security, and when you have a guaranteed lifetime income annuity, those will pay you as long as you're on the planet. So that's the purest form. There are some situations, I would say not nearly as many, where people just say, I want to be paid. I have a client that said, okay, I have a huge amount of money. I want this to be my travel fund for 20 years. I'm just my below travel fund. Then we set up their immediate annuity, pay for 20 years. We're like, if we're still on the planet and you're 21, we've traveled for 20 years. So sometimes it can be set up for a specific period of time, Joshua, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But the purest sense, the most valuable, is paying for as long as you're on the planet.
So I'm reaching very deep into my memories of my former life and career as a financial advisor, and I believe I was exposed to a term called a period certain. And I believe at that time that was a part of the way some annuities were marketed. Is that still a part, and is it a relevant part perhaps to this discussion?
So let's use you as an example, right? You're getting a paycheck. We have a life only. In a few years down the road, you tip over dead, right? So the purest sense, what's called the life only, ends. Okay, that's not very attractive, right? Like, okay, if I die in a year from now or two, that's a terrible investment. So normally what we do is we put either the joint on, but we always put on what's called a survivorship option. So essentially what it says is, okay, you tipped over dead early. Well, we're going to continue to pay that annuity out, Joshua, to your named beneficiary, kids, charity, for a number of years, 15 years, 20. I always design it that you get at least what you put in out, or maybe a little bit more. So that way you always know the money you put in, you'll either get it for the rest of your life, or somebody will receive it for X number of years.
Fantastic. That I think is huge. In my former life, that really changed my comfort level with those products, right?
Sure.
Because that downside for me, that I could get a 4 or 5, 6% payout one time, and then if I have bad luck, see 94% of it disappear. Well, it was a bit scary to me when I was getting started.
sure.
And that period certain feature, at least for me at that time, changed my approach and my perspective quite dramatically.
And I think over my 27 years, I can't remember a situation where I didn't put a period certain on it. And I can't remember a situation even working with a client that didn't have a period certain, right? Pensions just automatically are like that, but as a profession, it's pretty rare that we would set up an annuity that wouldn't provide the ability to have your full amount paid out.
So a couple questions that are perhaps related. I'll try not to ask too many here so that you can keep them all straight, right? Is there a minimum age where you can begin collecting from an annuity? And when you talk about mortality credits, are they based strictly on your age, or do they factor in health factors in any fashion?
Okay, so the first question is, when can you start turning your income stream on? Generally 59 and a half is the rule, but technically there's a rule out there called 72Q that you can start income earlier if you have an extended period of time that you're taking income. So if you want an income plan, you can actually start that income as early as you want. So that's one answer. The second question was around mortality credits.
Yeah, and is it based strictly on your age at the time that you turn it on, or is it actually ever based on your health? I mean, some people know that their health is not good.
For sure. So mortality credits always on health, always on age. Now, some carriers on the immediate annuity space have a little bump if you're unhealthy. And that bump is usually either a 10% bump or a 20% bump. So we talked about your example of getting $1,000 a month. Well, this benefit, if you don't have awesome health, now your benefit might be paid $1,100 or $1,200 in that situation. So yes, if you don't have awesome health, you could get paid more in income.
Super. We are almost 20 minutes past the end of the hour here, and I am not out of questions. Clearly, our audience has been engaged. They've been enjoying this. And I think we may have to invite you back to do at least another question and answer session, maybe depending on the feedback we get from you, the audience, and we'd love to have any and all the feedback we can get. Maybe we can go deeper into some things that are of particular interest to you. So what I'd like to do, just because we are 20 minutes past the hour, is wrap things up. One more thank you to Mike. We really appreciate your being here, sharing all of this information with us. I want to remind you that Mike is available for questions, for follow-up. The email, either workshops@mnhealthagents.com, or hopefully we're able to put his direct contact information up on the screen as well. Want to make sure that you guys have access again to that, because I've never really gotten every question answered on this. It always seems that there's something else. Somebody's situation is special. It's different.
For sure.
Just not possible to do everything in 1 hour or even 80 minutes. So thank you very much for being with us, and we look forward to talking to all of you again in May.
Thank you, Joshua.